climate change is real. It happens every year. Earth is dynamic like that. Our solar system is as well. You know, we're coming out of a grand solar maximum and entering into a grand solar minimum. So what happens on this is, you know, solar radiation increases, right? Well, when solar radiation increases, the temperature goes up. There's a lag, however, and whenever the temperature goes up, it takes a long time to heat all of the water that is on our planet, you know? What happens with that is whenever the temperature increases, well, the CO2 increases as well. So, like, Al Gore is correct that there is a correlation. However, it's backwards, right? You have more CO2, more greenhouse gas effect whenever you have higher temperature. After the World War II, we had a low period of sunspot activity, yet our man-made carbon footprint started increasing greatly for like 30 years, right? From that post-economic boom that we had after World War II. The solar radiation is so low, so it creates a sort of odd thing where it's like, well, why is the CO2 higher in this 30-year period and not affecting the temperature here? So, but what it does match is it matches the solar radiation. So when the solar radiation started increasing, they started having these news outlets talk about a great global cooling was on the way. Ironically enough, that we should be careful of this new ice age. So now we're exiting the grand solar maximum and coming into a grand solar minimum. But again, there's a lag. So while the sunspot activity is starting to decrease, the temperature is still increased for a couple of years, but it's going to start coming down as well. So we're going to see likely in like 60 to 80 years, it's going to get really cold. What it seems to be on like a 400-year cycle, more or less, that like great cold period, and 200 years later, great warm period, 200 years later, back to a cold period. Like it's, again, it's a sine wave of solar activity. So these notions of like the Great Reset, tying in things with like climate change. Okay, so what are we talking about specifically when we say that? We want to talk about pollution, right? That should be what we're talking about. Water pollution, yeah, or even like Garbage Island, which is you know, supposedly like the size of Texas, and you think about like oh, it's this giant landmass. Like no, it's this water that's infested with all this plastic. These organisms can't live in this water because it's essentially liquid plastic. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to essentially replace like the current upper echelons with folks they want to be in the upper echelons. The rest of us are still down here at the bottom,
right?
You know, but like they want to minimize competition from an external source. So a great reset of reimagining currency, capitalism, labor force, all of these things is going to be very beneficial to having that come to fruition, right? So, to give an example, like the Paris Climate Accord, right? The Paris Climate Accord, what it does, it sets up this system where you use tax credits, money from the taxpayers, to buy carbon credits to allow you to pollute. So it actually doesn't reduce any pollution. In fact, China and India, the two most offensive polluters on the planet, could actually double their carbon footprint and their pollution footprint by just buying more credits. They were allowed to do so under the Paris Climate Accord. So folks like Al Gore and the Bushes and all these other folks that we've seen from Reagan era till Trump era politics in America have all been ready for these carbon credits to kick in. Like all this stuff was set up, right, for them to be able to cash in. Why? Well, because what it seems like is that this global warming aspect of climate change is going to fall by the wayside in a few decades, right? So you need to strike while the iron's hot.
Run me over like a waterfall, drown me in the coldest spring, pull me under like a puppet going into your jaws again.
The absurdity of like the ocean levels rising. He's like, if that were the case, he's like, you would have no billionaires buying beachfront property.
Right.
All these folks buying islands in the Caribbean. You know, like you wouldn't have this if they knew that a global catastrophe like that was coming. So it doesn't make sense for it. What does make sense is them trying to profit off of it because it's a small window that they have, right? They only have like a generation or two to be able to convince of this before the data is not going to fit their argument anymore. You have to capitalize on this. So Paris Climate Accord was a way to capitalize on it while giving the illusion of caring about the environment.
Takes me away.